Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 413 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is legacy. Our quote of the day comes to us from Pericles. What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. With the holiday season right around the corner, and if you are looking for a fun and inspirational book, we would love it if you grabbed a copy of either The Positivity Tribe or The Positivity Tribe in the Locker Room. You can head on over to Amazon or wherever you prefer to get your books, or you can grab a copy or two by heading on over to thepositivitytribe.com. Over the past couple of months, I've been studying a lot and reading quite a bit on Kobe Bryant, and I really enjoyed speaking with our guest today. Eli Ihej wrote a fantastic book about Kobe Bryant, and I think you will get a lot from what he has to share with us. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Eli, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you. That's great to be here. I love it.
Appreciate it. We were talking offline, and although we release these episodes only on audio, you and I are on video, and I'm holding up your book, which is titled What Kobe Left Behind, The Playbook from an Extraordinary Life. I know I shared this with you offline, but I absolutely loved your book. And my first question to you is, what made you actually go ahead and write the book?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a combination of a number of things. I think the core thing for me was, first came from being a longtime Kobe fan, having born and raised in LA, and grown up, spent like the first almost 40 years of my life in LA. And, Kobe growing up just a few years ahead of me and being so mesmerized as a Laker fan about his abilities, but never really appreciating like how he got there. And so for me, like the turnaround was when he died, as, that kind of moment where every basketball fan remembers, where they were when they heard the news that he died in a car crash. And you're like, and for me, it was like coming to terms with the fact that he wasn't just a fan for me or for Laker fans, but he had an impact on the world that I think was evident in the days and weeks after his death, all the outpouring of grief and support and just admiration for his accomplishments. And so it got me to thinking, if he's had this global impact where presidents and Grammy-winning artists and people people as far away as China are like just mourning him, there's got to be something more than him just becoming a great basketball player, because there's a lot of people who have done great things in basketball courts. So that's what made me want to go dig behind the whole Mamba mentality and like understand like what is it that allowed him to become so influential, but also overcome so many of the things that many other prominent people have tripped up on. And it really helped me uncover like a distinct set of habits and techniques that he used to just, become great on and off the court. And I'm like, okay, this story is something that I think everybody can benefit from, whether or not they even, like watching basketball, because they're techniques that we can use in almost every facet of life, and some that I've already started using based on my research. And now through this book, I'm like, hey, you can discover some great stories about a very interesting, public figure, and then see how you can apply those to yourself. So I'm like, how can I not do that?
Yeah. And I really think that the way you just described it, why you wrote it, as I look at Kobe, for example, compared to some of the other quote unquote greats in all different facets of life, not to be incredibly analytical, but there are many of those that are amazing at what they do, but they stayed in that sphere after their career was over, whether it was broadcasting for athletes or coaching. And not that makes somebody better or worse, but I think Kobe did a complete 180 in the sense of really loving this whole concept and idea of curiosity and really and truly trying to understand what made people tick and were able to succeed. And his curiosity led him down the road of reaching out and having conversations and ultimately becoming very good friends with people from literally all walks of life. And I'd heard a bunch of different stories over the last couple of years, but you touched on some of them. And one of the ones that stood out to me was Kobe's fascination with Heath Ledger, and when he turned himself into the Joker character in the Batman movie. And I had read a couple things about that movie, but I had no idea that Heath Ledger literally locked himself in a hotel room for a month and became that character, which ultimately turned into kind of Kobe figuring out what it takes to be the best and be able to have that tunnel focus.
Yeah, it's I'm great. I'm really glad you brought that up because it's a truly it's one of those examples of a technique that Kobe used. Yeah, that's part of his curiosity, but then also it's like you have that curiosity, and then what are you going to do with it? And so he knew how to apply his curiosity, how to take the curiosity and then apply it to solving problems. And the Heath Ledger thing is just really fascinating because, like you said, you watch that movie, The Dark Knight, and you're just so mesmerized. Like Heath Ledger, he doesn't, you don't even recognize him. If you've seen him in other movies, you don't even recognize this Joker as that, oh, that's Heath Ledger, because he totally transformed himself. And he did it through a very intense and focused process of, just really trying to immerse himself into what the Joker was. And so, Kobe's, thinking about this and saying, hey, this is kind of goes back to my own process of the Black Mamba of like really trying to put my identity into a different space so that when I'm on the court, it's like an actor going onto a stage or going onto the set. I've completely transformed into the character that I need to be the best in that particular environment. And so, when we would see him dominate dominate the basketball court in ways that we thought were impossible, it's because he found a way to harness that energy of attitude transformation, and kind of like what Heath Ledger did, and just really just annihilate his competition and just leave them scratching their head how this is even possible. So I'm glad you really brought that up because it's a great story.
Yeah, it talks about and obviously it just shows the complexity, and I mean that in a good way of what Kobe was able to do, but also who he was. Maybe a challenging or difficult question for you, but is there one, or did you have a biggest takeaway from the research process and actually writing the book?
The biggest takeaway is that Kobe lived every day to try and learn. He was always trying to find out, how can I learn from this? How can I learn from that? And it is that kind of attitude that you see in children, especially young children who are learning to walk and then to talk, and they're constantly absorbing information and processing it to how do I get better? And then, but once we get to adulthood, it's kind of like most of us plateau and just like, okay, now we're just coasting. But he never stopped, and that's what allowed him to become the best high school player, in the state when he was sucked just a few years ago before, or win the slam dunk contest, or win championships with Shaq and then without Shaq, is because he was always trying to learn. But then you go to beyond that, as we saw him doing when he retired, to creating this short film to basketball, winning a freaking Oscar, developing a best-selling series of children's books. There was no limits to what he wanted to accomplish, and he was going to take every opportunity to learn, to get better, and to see that the core value in that everything that happens is information that I can use to get better. And if everything you can use to get better, then essentially failure doesn't exist. So if I miss a bunch of shots, I'm not going to get down on myself, because it's just an opportunity to learn. Hey, why did I miss? How can I do better? Not get down on myself, but take that as data, process that data, and then become better on the next time around. And if we all harness that kind of idea that whatever happens is just the data that I can use to get better, then we will be able to achieve things that people thought were impossible, you know? So I think he really, I think it's people don't understand just how incredible his accomplishments were across the board, but most importantly, that mindset of always getting better helped make that possible.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Through your research and actually writing the book, do you have a favorite Kobe story?
Whew, there are so many. There's so many. I mean, I could talk about the story about him, the blackout game he had with his teammate, where apparently they pushed themselves to the point where they were almost blacking out during practice, which is just crazy. I don't know how anybody could have the like love basketball so much that they would almost kill themselves for it. So that's one story. Another story that just always gets me every time is, the story of him. Yes, the one where he put his gold medal inside of his teammate's locker as a motivator. And it's just really a very cerebral moment because it's not just about let me just figure out how to dominate the court. It's how do I push my teammates to be better in ways that they would never expect. And I just think that's really fascinating that he figured out, hey, my teammate Pau Gasol, who I know really loves being challenged, I'm going to challenge him by almost kind of dissing him, but I know that's going to raise him to another level. So that's another story as well. And a lot of the stuff between him and Shaq is just fascinating, both on the love and the hate side, because they were like brothers in that way that they loved each other and hate each other at the same time, and all the different drama they went through, from fist fights to like the reconciliation after they retired. It's just a beautiful thing, and but also a sad thing that that Kobe's gone and Shaq almost felt like he lost his family member.
That's a really poignant point you make. The whole Shaq and Kobe, I guess, feud, love, hate, relationship, friendship, the test. Can we choose different words to use? But I think they did an interview, not I think, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago when they just sat down one on
Yeah.
one. And for me, I was enamored by the hype for that interview and just listening to the two of them. But I think one of the things that I really respect about Kobe and also Shaq is they've had the ups and the downs. They've both had challenges in their marriages. They've both gone to the heights of being the best and then having horrible seasons as a team, growing, maturing, but then in their 40s able to come back and realize that we had something special. And even though there were times we physically fought each other and hated each other in the media, we are mature enough now to be able to have those conversations. And I really respect both Kobe and Shaq for being able to have those conversations. And you and I talked about Jordan a bit offline. To this day, Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley have not reconciled from their feud a couple of years ago when Charles Barkley made a comment that Michael Jordan wasn't a good owner, and Jordan took it so personal that they haven't spoken since. So I think with that in mind, it's really neat that Shaq and Kobe were able to reconcile, but also have that wherewithal to have a difficult conversation.
Yeah, I think that was a really good example of reconciliation and what it means to try and connect with other people. It doesn't mean you need to agree with them all the time. I mean, just Kobe. I mean, and then doing through the research of this book and my own knowledge of the Lakers, it's just incredible how many times Kobe and Shaq cut each other deep, physically and emotionally, and so for them to come back later and be like so friendly and loving to each other, and for them to treat each other's kids like family, it's truly a lesson to everybody else. In fact, I think and that's one of the things that caught me, that really got me emotional when Kobe died, is like Shaq's level of distress and remorse, and being like, I wish I had more time. I really should be calling on my friends and family more often. And there are people talking around the league about other feuds that they hope are reconciled, in the way that Kobe and Shaq was. So yeah, it's a great lesson to people to like be like, hey, you can fight with people and you can have issues with them, but remember that try and remember the good times and just see the past as like almost like a just a story to tell and try to connect with each other and have and come to a better place that I think I certainly appreciate the way that Kobe and Shaq did.
And we all know the term success leaves clues. And there's a famous Zig Ziglar quote, which is failure is an event, not a person. And that's what I think about a lot when I look back at some of the Kobe and Shaq feuds, but more importantly, some of the things that happened to Kobe along the way, the good and the bad, is they could be identified as failures, meaning, they failed to make the finals or they failed to make the playoffs. But Kobe, to your point, didn't just internalize that as, woe was me or woulda, coulda, shoulda. He internalized it as, how can I use this as a learning component? How can I get better? How can I get stronger, faster? And when you look at the post basketball career, the one thing that just, sticks out to me is I wish, obviously, a bunch of us that he didn't pass, because I think what he was going to do on the creative side was remarkable. And I mean, he barely even scratched the surface, and he won an Oscar, and he, as you said, had a best-selling children's book series. But some of the projects he was talking about, just, it's too bad that we can't see him come to fruition.
Yeah, there was a book. He was working on a book, or rather, I can't remember what author it was. I believe the author of I think it was the book The Giver or something. He mentioned after his death, the author said that he and Kobe were planning to work on a book together and had already kind of started the process. And now, that obviously that will never see the light of day. So that's just one example of the many things that he had in store for the world, because he recognized in his mind shifted from his career to retirement is that, and I think he said this before, at the beginning was about me being the best player, me being the best. I'm going to dominate everybody, which is part of, his selflessness as a young athlete, and then transition to, hey, how do I make everybody else better on the team? And that's going to help us win. And then the final evolution, in my opinion, was, how do I really share my knowledge and my experiences with the world in a way that helps people around the world be able to better themselves and enhance their abilities, and that's what the books that's what the books were about. That's what his social activism was about. That's what really he was transitioning into, and so we were just seeing the taste of it, and it was already amazing. So I can just imagine what's going to come after that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so that's why for me it's like, hey, okay, he didn't go and do all the things he wanted to do, but he left the clues behind that can allow the rest of us to kind of take up that mantle, take up that baton, and go and reach for our own successes.
I like how you described his career of the selfish me part. I look at that and with some of the teams and coaching staffs I work with, it's kind of the evolution of a player in the sense of, your freshman year or your rookie year, it's about me. I want to be the best. I want to play. I want to start. Then over next season, half a season, 2 seasons, you have that evolution of, okay, it's good and I'd like to be the best and great, but I realize that if I want to win, I need a team. And that's obviously what Kobe understood. And then I think the last phase of his career, especially because they weren't winning a lot the last couple of years, but he did come back from some really tough injuries. That phase, I think, was the mentorship part where he was mentoring some of the young players. And most people don't know, and I absolutely love the fact that it didn't come out until later, that Michael Jordan was such a big mentor for Kobe, because Kobe was not, and Jordan was not the type of player that would put everything on social media like, hey, I just got off another 2-hour call with my mentor Jordan. We talked about boom, boom, boom. He did it. He'd call Jordan. Jordan would call him. And I think that's that mentorship piece. And what I miss, and I think a lot of the NBA now and then in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years are going to miss, was having Kobe mentor some of the younger guys. Because I know for a fact some of the younger people in this generation and the next generation to come, those are the ones that would be calling up Kobe or texting him and saying, hey, can you help me with this? And I know, because so many amazing players mentored him, he would have returned the favor and then some.
Yeah, he was very much about, or at least, yeah, once he got to the latter half of his career, especially, he was very much about paying it forward and recognizing that, yeah, whatever like somebody's given to me, I should give back in a couple of different ways. One way that I thought was also interesting that I don't think I put in the book was that, there's this habit of players resting,
Load management.
load management, and he said he really was not a fan of that for the most part because as a child, he remembered as a child his how important it was for him to go to the game and see his favorite players play, and how much of a letdown it would be if they didn't show up. And so him being a player, he's like, I know there's some kid out there who wants to be inspired by me. So even though I'm sore and I'm not feeling great and I just want to sit out, I'm going to go out there and play. So that kind of understanding was really helped him power through some of those tough times. And then the second thing you said about mentorship is quite fascinating as well, because I mean the whole Michael Jordan thing is crazy. I mean, first of all, Jordan, they have so much in common. There's some areas where they're totally different. I think the one is in the amount of communication they do. Jordan rarely makes public appearances, rarely gives speeches. So for him to show up at Kobe's funeral and like be giving a eulogy and tears running down his face and basically say, what do you say? When Kobe died, a piece of me died too. I never saw that coming, but it shows like how close they were and how much Jordan wanted to imbue the best of himself into Kobe, and how much Kobe wanted to really live up to what the example Jordan had created. And then now Kobe taking that from his experience with Jordan and with Hakeem Olajuwon and with Jerry West and all these other greats that he learned from, now turn around and do it on the younger generation. So you see it's, and so then in that part of the book where I talk about the mentorship, it's just crazy how whether it's Luka Doncic or whether it was Giannis or Kyrie Irving or Kawhi Leonard, they all got mentored from him, and so he has had an impact on the NBA that's going to still be around for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think generations to come, and it's the concept you mentioned before, which is paying it forward. So I want to change lanes for a second here and kind of dive under the hood a little bit of you. You can't answer your book, but I'm curious if you've read anything else recently or you're currently reading something that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
That's a good question. Well, I did start the book, the new Elon Musk book by Walter Isaacson. I haven't gotten that far into it because I've been so busy, but those are, I would say the two of the people that fascinate me the most are those two, Kobe and Elon. And it was intriguing for me to find out that they had actually met and had a conversation, and basically Kobe wanted to pick Elon's brain about how he became so successful. So I would love to be in that room. Yeah, that's the book that I'm reading right now. And then I've got a couple of classic sci-fi books from Isaac Asimov, and so yeah, I'm a big sci-fi fan as well, and I just finished rereading Dune. So for me, it's big on sci-fi and big on like other great people and what have they done and where can I learn from. And so Elon's definitely one of them.
The famous quote by Jim Rohn, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." If I could grant you dinner tonight with any 5 people, dead or alive, that you could level up from, who would you pick?
Well, I mean, I think I got 2 already, so it'll probably be Elon and Kobe. That would be the top 2. Nikola Tesla, I guess, would be really intriguing because of his just immense knowledge and wisdom. Abraham Lincoln, and when you talk about somebody who tried to find peace in a nightmare, that's definitely one person. And aside from that, it would probably be, I don't know, I think Marvin Gaye he was just a fascinating, talented person. I love to understand how he became so good and how much he struggled at the same time.
I'm not going to lie. I was almost going to preference the question as who would be your 4 people, because I knew fact that Kobe would be
yes,
one of
right.
them. We have what we call our hot seat questions, and the only request we have of you is that you spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, let's do it.
Last meal, what do you pick?
Pepperoni pizza.
Favorite smell?
Movie popcorn.
Favorite sport?
Basketball. Obviously, that's easy.
All-time favorite team? I think I'm going with Lakers.
Lakers, yeah, Lakers. You can take that to the bank.
Assuming you can't pick the Lakers, is there a second team?
In sports or in basketball?
Sports.
Well, I would say the Dodgers, just because I'm an LA guy. So that'll be number 2.
Favorite movie?
Back to the Future.
Oh, great movie. Favorite book?
Probably 1984.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Favorite quote? I guess war is the health of the state.
What's the favorite app you have or use on your phone?
Right now it's Twitter, probably.
What is that one song, no matter whenever you hear it, morning, afternoon, or late at night, you just automatically turn it up and rock out to it?
There's one it's this techno song called Keep Hope Alive from this group called Crystal Method. That gets me going.
I like it. And what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, follow you, or if they want to find out more about you or your book?
Yeah, I mean, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Eli Ihej. That's ELIIHEJ. Or you could go to my website, eliihej.com, same spelling, ELIIHEJ.com, and check out my blog or see what I'm up to next.
And then last question we have for you, same question we ask everybody, is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yeah, I would just say whenever you're trying to, you're in a tough situation, just try and think about people you admire who've been in tough situations and what they would do. And I think you'll find your answer.
I think that's a great way to end today's episode. Eli, I just need to thank you again for not only your time, but also writing this fabulous book. I really, really enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend it to our listeners, whether you are a basketball fan, a Kobe fan or not. It's a story about somebody that had a ton of adversity in life, but was unbelievably creative and worked incredibly hard. So thank you for being on here, and I know that you and I will connect again soon.
Thanks. It's my pleasure. And I really appreciate this experience, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to episode number 413. Eli spent 3 years not only researching, but writing his fantastic book, What Kobe Left Behind, and I really enjoyed our conversation. Kobe left behind quite a legacy. As we wrap up today's episode, I would like to challenge you to think about the legacy that you are leaving behind. Think about the legacy that you want to leave behind. With that in mind, I have a fantastic quote I'd like to share with you from C.S. Lewis. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.